This is the Dover Download Podcast. My name is Christopher Parker, and for the past 25 years, I've had the pleasure of working with, learning from, and talking to a variety of volunteer, staff, and community members. This podcast explores conversations, activities, and a variety of policies and programs which exist here in Dover to improve the community in one way or another. There are two things that happen every summer in New Hampshire. The first is a couple months of nice weather. The second is a couple months of construction and ongoing activities that we try to cram into that nice weather. Today, to talk to us about some of the projects that people can anticipate coming up this summer and maybe into the fall, are Community Services Director John Storr and City Engineer Ken Mavrogeorge. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in today.
Al, thanks for having us, Chris. Great to be with you.
Thanks, Chris.
So as I mentioned there, somewhat jokingly, but really not, the summer is the prime time to do a lot of projects, particularly paving and some of those road-based and utility-based projects. Not that we don't do things year-round as weather permits, but are there some highlights that right off the bat we think we should focus on?
Oh, gosh, Chris, we've got so much going on. I wouldn't even know where to start. I think Ken, as a city engineer, can update you on a lot of the infrastructure projects, but I just like to highlight a couple on the water side, if you will, the drinking water side. We're in about our second week of running our new PFAS treatment plant. We're calling it the Pudding Hill Treatment Plant. That was about a $15 million project that the city was able to construct without any city money. We had a responsible party and a state grant. That is one of the most complicated treatment plants in the state. The benefit to Dover, it's putting our high-capacity Pudding Hill aquifer back into service, which had been offline for multiple years now. And we are using a specialized carbon treatment process to remove PFAS to levels of non-detect. So we've got great water coming out of that. And that's been one of our big projects that Ken and his staff have been overseeing. And just happy to get that up and running.
So that coupled with the project that started last fall with the new water tower on the north end, those are pretty big capstone water projects that we've got online.
You know, those are pretty significant, Chris. Like the water plant being a single project of $15 million, and the tank that is going up around Webb Place is 1 million gallons in storage capacity. That alone was $6 million. And that tank is critical because we need to get that up and in service to provide redundancy and ensure there's flow and pressure, because we eventually have to renovate the storage tank that's up on Garrison Hill. We pump into these tanks so there's an emergency basis should we lose power, have a fire flow, something like that. But the Garrison Hill tank is old, needs some attention. So we'll get that new tank in service that people may be seeing going up. It's an elevated tank, very visible up at that end of town. Once that's up and running, we're going to turn our attention to renovating the Garrison Hill tank, which will probably occur late this fall into the winter, something like that.
We could just go down the CIP list. That would be an easy way, and maybe that's what we end up doing. But the two other projects that are non-water related that jump out in my mind that people will probably see visibly are the Fifth and Grove reconstruction project and the Portland Avenue retaining wall project. Those are two on high visibility corridors, and they're pretty impactful to the neighborhoods around them. Am I right on that, or are there other ones you think we should highlight?
You're right, Chris. I think Fifth and Grove is a street reconstruction project where we are rebuilding the pavement from ground up, taking out the gravels that have been there for quite a long time and making sure we have new clean gravels in, rebuilding all the drainage infrastructure. Sewer work is minimal, but we think that there's going to be some whole new water main that's going in. We are expecting at the end of the project to have traffic pattern changes as part of this, going from two-way travel on 5th Street down to one-way travel for a portion of it. All of these projects typically go through a public input process, and so I think a lot of the information for these projects is found on our city's website, on our project-specific websites, and folks can sign up for project-specific email updates as they want to and pick and choose which projects they select. The Portland Ave retaining wall is going to be, as you said, it's on a main corridor out of the downtown. The project will require some temporary impacts to traffic flow. Temporary signals will be put in place by the contractor. Both projects are expected to kick off here within the next week or so, and at the end of May. Portland Ave, you probably notice out there, there's trees that have been taken down, and there will be some building demolition of an old abandoned gas company building. That's just along the sidewalk there. So these two projects are just the sort of the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
We have a lot in the queue, a lot of projects that are in the design. Henry Law Ave and Payne Street are both under redesign right now, sort of in conjunction with the waterfront development. But we're looking at putting new best management practices to treat stormwater within Henry Law Park. We are looking at installing or constructing upgrades to our sewer infrastructure in that area, new sidewalks, new parking, signage, you name it. This is just, it goes to show that there's a lot that goes into maintaining and upkeeping our city infrastructure. And then I think one of the more visible ones that we see on an annual basis is the street paving program. We recently posted our new paving list for this year, and like a street reconstruction project, it's designed to keep our good roads good and try to gradually improve the condition of all roads. So our staff and operations staff and community services has taken quite a bit of time to make sure we select roads that are highly traveled, especially Washington Street is going to get some work done this year. And then some of the older neighborhoods too that haven't seen a lot of care in quite some time.
We can circle back to a couple of those items, but it strikes me, you mentioned the ability for people to sign up for alerts and to follow the project web pages, and it strikes me that maybe over the last 10 years, but certainly over the past 5 years, the way that we've engaged the public to talk about these projects and to get feedback on these projects, it's just light years ahead of where we were 10, 15 years ago. We might have a presentation to the council of here's the project we're thinking about doing. And then there would be hey, look at what we did. And now there's much more awareness of engaging the public, working with the public. It was a public suggestion to go one way on Fifth Street, if I remember, because they recognized the value of the street trees and some of the other elements that we wouldn't have been able to maintain if we had gone to two-way. And so that's the sort of stuff I think is really interesting to see a progression. And we all get way too many emails in our day, but that's a great way to give people an opportunity to sign up and learn more and to follow a project. Opt in, opt out, I guess you could say on that information.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that is we find, at least in the engineering division, is that the feedback we get from residents may give us a completely different perspective because we're not there living the day-to-day on these streets. Fifth and Grove, you're right. There was a suggestion that turning left onto Chestnut from Fifth Street was a challenge, which allowed us to look at potentially going one way from Chestnut down to Fourth. During that evaluation, it was determined that we were going to be able to provide additional parking that we wouldn't have provided had we gone and maintained a two-way travel direction. So that type of input through public polls, public meetings is invaluable for us.
I'd like to add to that. I think, trying to engage the public really is key for the success of our projects. I tell our staff we want to be in the yes business when we can, but we have to truth out, use our engineering background to make sure that the recommendations that people bring forward have engineering sense, match engineering standards, are safe. But I think that's a critical piece because we feel like we're stewards of the public dollars and we want to be able to try to accommodate some of these features in the neighborhoods. And I know trees, hearing that trees are a very, sacred item, and we do have to take down some older trees, but we're going to revegetate the area. Right. If people think of like the Silver Street corridor, I don't want to say it's going to look identical, but we plan to put back a significant number of trees, streetscaping, there'll be curbing, better sidewalk access. I was going to say,
they won't have undulating sidewalks because of the tree roots that have outgrown their livelihood.
Exactly.
One of the things that jumps out to me as part of this review, every door that closes, there's a door that opens kind of conversation is, recently the city lost Gary Bannon from its employ. And so I know as part of the transition with Gary leaving, you have taken a more ownership role on some of the recreation projects that Gary had probably managed or facetiously, I'll say micromanaged over the years. And so I know Ken, you and Eric Sanderson, the facilities project manager, have been getting more involved on recognizing and prioritizing some of those. So for instance, the outdoor pool renovations that are required, which we got a grant to help cover some of that cost. those are things that you're seeing. Do you have a way that you're evaluating where those projects need to be put into your queue?
So right now, our engineering division prioritizes all of our projects. Right now, our list is close to 100 projects, just engineering related, before we factor in the recreation side of things. When you factor in facilities and recreation, we're talking about another 65 or so projects. So it is quite the challenge to prioritize those, but I think we as a staff can utilize the expertise of our consultants to try to best use the city's dollars as best we can, really. For instance, on the Jenny Thompson pool, the initial thought was that the pool rehab would cost around $500,000, but it was determined through a feasibility study that the cost to repair it and to allow it to continue for the foreseeable future was going to be far greater. That helps us make that determination because the lifespan or the expected life was not as long, less than 5 years were remaining on that pool's life. So it really put that at the top of the list. Other projects, such as some minor improvements to the Adventure Park downtown, the playground, are warranted based on feedback we've received from the public. Those are also in the queue, and certainly are smaller tasks that we could tackle on a short time basis. But we just need to make sure that we take care of our major safety issues first and foremost, and then tackle the projects that need to extend the life of our public infrastructure as long as we can. And then the more of the wants can come later after we take care of the needs.
It strikes me that there's an opportunity with the rec projects to get to the model of the street paving where you want to get them at that point before they become disasters.
Correct.
Or before they become full reconstructions, as we say in the street world. That same sort of philosophy can apply of saying, how do we make the incremental fixes, the adventure playground type fixes, so that we don't have how are we going to replace that pool? Or
right.
Let's re-roof the pavilions before we have to actually rebuild and create new pavilions.
We have a couple of other projects too that are being tackled with that same mindset, right? We have the dugouts and roofs for some of our ball fields are going to be redone this year. Very minor. It doesn't necessarily mean that the dugouts are unsafe and in imminent failure, but just making sure, just like you would at your own home, that they're safe and they can last for the next 20 or so years. So that's the type of attitude we're trying to bring to the department, to all the facilities, and that's really what engineering and our facilities project management staff are doing, is trying to work and support the rest of the city.
John, are there sewer projects that are out there? I know there's always I&I work that's ongoing, and we've got a long-range plan at the wastewater treatment facility, but are there other sewer projects that maybe aren't in conjunction with a roadway reconstruction project?
Good question, Chris, about the sewer projects. You've probably chatted about the magnitude of the waterfront, but in parallel with that, what I try to tell people, the reason the waterfront can happen was a really big change based on the sewer side, because the sewer plant got relocated. The sewer plant is now down on Middle Road, kind of on the outskirts of town, if you will. But all the sewer flow from the downtown is still conveyed to the waterfront. So we have what we call the River Street Pump Station, which we'll probably still call River Street, even though it's been renamed to Payne Street. But that station is undergoing a $9 million upgrade for the conveyance of the flow, to make sure there's reliability and it's going to be in good working order, but also to make sure that we have good odor control. The sewer, right, there are a lot of jokes there. It's a dirty business. It can be smelly. Where we're going to implement the latest technology and equipment to make sure that we minimize any potential odor that comes from that. Success with that upgrade will be walk right by and not even know it's a sewer pump station. And that's a $9 million project. When we talk about pump stations, to get all this wastewater conveyed to the treatment plant, we have about 23 different sewer pump stations. And so we're trying to tackle a pump station every year. And Ken and his staff are already working on the next one, which will be over on Mill Street. It might be good for Ken to talk about that, because we have delayed paving Mill and Charles Streets, and we get a lot of complaints about the condition of that. And we understand that that road is bad, but we also know that there is work on the sewer that's underlying that road that needs to happen with the Mill Street pump station.
Yeah, so Mill Street pump station is a major sort of collector for our system, which pumps up to Charles Street pump station, which then flows down to Locust Street and ultimately to River Street pump station. what our task is to try and find a way to make sure that we have functioning systems for a long period of time. One thing we've asked our consultants to do is to look at whether or not we can consolidate Charles Street Pump Station and Mill Street into one, or if we are able to remove both of those together and get all of our sewer to flow down to Varney Brook Pump Station. So we're trying our best to reduce the overhead, reduce the operating costs for the city by eliminating pump stations. As John said, we have 23 of them, and the less we have, that means the less money we have to spend, the less money we have to collect, and the less operating costs that everyone else has to bear. So
the less impellers that can break at the absolute wrong time.
Absolutely. And in a location where it currently is, right along the river, the less we can put our natural resources in jeopardy, the better. Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately, that's a goal that John and I have talked about at length, is trying to find a way to consolidate our stations, eliminate our stations, and reduce our costs. That Mill Street area is just one of them. The other would be trying to get sewer up to the north end of the city. If we can get sewer in that area, we could eliminate a couple of maybe 3 stations altogether. That is a project that we are currently investigating, and we anticipate probably within the next year or so to put out a design request to look at that a little bit more in depth. And hopefully in the near future, we can have some sort of action plan to put into the next CIP.
So to wrap up, we've got a lot of projects. They are all over the city, and folks that want to be engaged should check out the project web pages to keep alert of what generally is happening, but also to have an opportunity to click through and sign up for email alerts as they become available.
Oh, I think that's a great point, Chris. Ken and his staff try to get a lot of updates on the website. You should be able to get schedule on the paving when some of the paving work's going to occur. And then just to use this opportunity, like you started things off saying how our schedule has to be compressed because of the winter months. Just want to get word out. Ken talked about it with some of their recreation projects. The Henry Law Adventure Playground, we've got to change out some of the wooden features. We're going to go low maintenance granite. I think it'll have a nice aesthetic, but we're probably going to have to shut that park down at some point during the summer for a week or two. Our goal is to have it ready by Apple Harvest Fest and try to minimize the summer disruption, but it's the type of work you can't do during the wintertime. Right. So if parents are listening or anybody's concerned about projects, go to the website. We try to get current information and updates so that you can stay in tune with what we've got planned and what's going to be happening.
Anything else the listeners should know before we sign off today?
The other thing, I appreciate you having us in to talk about projects. One of the other things I mentioned is just the operations staff that are ongoing behind the scenes. Like right now, we've got multiple crews out. We're running multiple street sweepers. Some are starting at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning trying to sweep every street in the city, and they get relieved mid-morning, and another crew comes in for the afternoon. That's critical for our MS4 permit, getting trash, debris, nutrients off the road. But it's also critical because it allows us to follow up with pavement markings and striping, the safety features, your crosswalks, your line striping. So that's ongoing too. And just ask people to be patient. If our crews are out there, we're trying to do the best we can. Understand we have a compressed window, but work is ongoing.
I think the follow-up on that is that, when you do see new lines going down on the road, I hope everyone just takes a minute to appreciate the fact that there is someone who is away from their family out in the middle of the night, making sure that we have these things that are going down in order to keep the rest of us safe and keep us, on the road. And if the water does break, if the sewer gets backed up, there are crews out there that are taking care of that on behalf of the city's residents. And, certainly we have contractors coming in doing some of our projects that we can't handle on our own or don't have the capacity to handle on our own. And so, as John said, it's important to bear with us as these areas go under construction, and remember that, to drive slow during areas of construction and make sure that you keep an eye out for the warning signs, and so everyone stays safe.
2 warnings that I always encourage people when they know there's construction going on. Watch for raised manholes, because you don't want to drive over them in the wrong way. And if it looks like fresh pavement markings, don't drive over them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good advice, Chris.
Well, I appreciate you both coming in, and look forward to maybe connecting in the fall where we can hear some follow-up on how some of these projects resolved and where we're at with others. I know Court Street's a project that we should look forward to a fall update on, not necessarily ready now, but as you indicated, we have over 100 projects we need to get done at some point.
Absolutely.
It's always something, Ken. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dover has a wealth of history in its over 400 years of existence. Coming up, Mike Gillis is going to share some of that history with us.
On this day, May 28, 1927, Dover celebrated Poppy Day, a special observance to honor and support disabled and needy veterans and their families. The John W. Christie Post, number 752, Veterans of the Foreign Wars, organized a movie show at the Opera House at City Hall with matinee and evening screenings to raise money for the Poppy Fund. The Ladies' Auxiliary of the American Legion, Dover Post number 8, also took to the streets selling poppies throughout the day. The bright red poppies have become a symbol of remembrance for those who sacrificed their lives in war, inspired by the famous poem In Flanders Field. Poppy Day dates back to the years following World War I, when the American Legion Auxiliary adopted the poppy as a memorial flower. The campaign was designed to provide financial assistance to veterans in need and support their families, many of whom had lost their providers or suffered disabilities during the war. Dover's event was a resounding success. All proceeds from the movie showings and poppy sales were dedicated solely to relief work for disabled and needy veterans and their loved ones. Dover observed Memorial Day yesterday at Pine Hill Cemetery, a tradition that has continued for many years. In the spirit of that solemn observation, we thought it important to recall another tradition, Poppy Day, even if not as widely known today as it once was.
Thanks for listening to the Dover Download this week. If you like what you heard, subscribe through your favorite podcast aggregator. And if you have something you want to hear a topic on, let us know. Finally, this is just one of the many ways we share information about the city of Dover. You can subscribe to the Dover Downloads email newsletter every week or other newsletters that we have by going to the City of Dover homepage, www.dover.nh.gov. Have a great week.